3, 2, 1, and another episode of the Falconry Told podcast is now live. If you haven't heard that intro for a while, it's because it's me, Israel Matson, stepping in here for the first time in, close to 2 years. And actually for this sort of State of the Union on the Falconry Told podcast, if you will. I'm, of course, joined by yours truly, Jonathan Munier.
What's up? What's up? Good to see you, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I mean, you stopped by, when was that? Almost a year ago, or was it last summer or something like that?
It was whenever I was, actually, it's probably been close to about at least a year and a half now. It was whenever I was still working in Wyoming, or it was it was when I was working in Boise. I drove down and I got the dog crate from you.
That's the last time I saw you, and then you came by our house in Arizona here, but unfortunately we weren't here. Just how things worked out. But hey, we're here to talk about Falconry Told podcast and kind of the direction things are going to take going forward. And first of all, I just want to congratulate you personally for where you've taken this, everything you've done, the sheer amount of volume of episodes you've done and where you've recorded them. It's just amazing. It is just amazing. I'm absolutely humbled to see where you've taken the Falconry Told podcast. And that kind of leads us into where we're going now. Basically, we've reached maybe a fork in the road, if you will. But essentially, for many different reasons, we're at a point where to continue on many different bases, like as a legal entity for financial reasons, etc., you would need either ownership to some degree of the Falconry Told podcast name, and I guess you'd call it like a franchise or whatever. And of course, I'm really attached to it. So anyways, together we've reached this agreement that the best way forward for you personally and the podcast that so many people have come to love and enjoy is for you to take the reins through your own complete new startup. So you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure, man. And I just want to say thanks too, because, I don't know about you, but I know over the last couple of years, especially, I know for me, it's still to some degree, I guess, kind of been weird, still almost flying by the seat of the pants, so to speak, and basically just trying to take things and grow it. And I set goals. I hope I accomplish them. Luckily, there's been some that I've accomplished in the last couple of years that's made me just more or less realize that we needed to figure out kind of where things were going. You've had so much on your plate the last couple of years, and I can't go to a function personally, without someone asking me, hey, what's up with Israel? Where's he at? And asking about you and everything. And it just kind of became more and more apparent that we were going to have to figure out either kind of like what you just said, either a passing of the baton, a changing of the guards, so to speak, officially, because so far it's kind of been almost an agreement between both of us that it's kind of been unofficially official, with everything that you've had going on the last couple of years and all that kind of stuff. So for everyone listening, basically, there's some people in the know, people that are sponsors or have sponsored or are getting ready to sponsor and things like that, and other people that are trying to grow with us and stuff. Some people are already in the know about this a little bit, but that being said, to basically what Israel is saying, we talked probably on the phone for maybe like 2 hours about a week ago. And we kind of just came to the conclusion that in order for things to kind of grow and continue to grow and keep going in the trajectory that they have been and even further, basically I was going to need to start up an entity basically under a different name. That way, the big hang up was, Israel's done so much to build his video library and kind of started the name and everything over, way before I came along. So you have Israel has every right to keep his name and his like basically his intellectual property intact under the Falconry Told name. We both agree on that. But I mean, if the podcast would have been initially started under a different name, it would kind of be a non-issue, because I would have just taken that over and it would have been a pretty much a clean growth going forward. But that being said, there was no clean way that Israel and I could come up with an idea. I mean, sure, I could offer to buy the intellectual property and stuff for whatever the case may be, but I don't have anything to do with the video work. You know, I really don't have any rights to that. And I mean, that's all Israel and always has been. And I've always been pretty transparent about that too. So that being said, the only thing we could come up with is that I start up my own official business for the podcast so that I could grow it how I need to see fit moving forward. And to that tune, I've started up Falconry Chronicles. And so the podcast side of things, Israel's going to retain rights and everything to his videos and the episodes that he's done with Falconry Told. So the Falconry Told entity will still exist and stuff. But from here on, pretty much from here on out, for everyone that wants to continue listening to the podcast side of things, we'll go ahead and start under Falconry Chronicles probably here in early January, once I get a chance to port everything over to the new RSS feed, new website, and all that kind of stuff. And pretty much, I'm more or less, like Israel said, taking over the reins on the podcast side of things because, you know, I mean, we each have our own lives and positions right now. And you know, I'm in more of a position right now to continue to grow the podcast than Israel is at this point in time. Is that right, Israel?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, very good summary. Actually, and it really just made no sense. And really, it wasn't fair for you to have to go through me on any decision making. It kind of irritated me because of the amount of work that you've put in and the library you've built and the whole, you know, everything you've got on the backlog ready to release. It was almost irritating to me on a personal level. Like, he shouldn't have to talk to me about anything to do with what he's doing because this is all him. So, you know, it's crazy to see everything you've done, but you deserve obviously to have full say over what you're doing, the decisions you're making. And by decisions, I mean sponsorships, partnerships with other podcasts, all these kind of opportunities that have come up for you where it's like, hey, Izzy, I'm going to do this. And it's like, go do it, you know? So just being able for you to have that full creative and business, financial, whatever, all the freedoms that you obviously deserve to have with the amount of work and the quality of work that you've built. And if we kind of wanted to backtrack all the way to the beginning here. So launching the Falconry Told podcast, as I've mentioned, you know, early on, you haven't heard from me a while, but I mention it frequently. The main reason I started the Falconry Told podcast was literally because there was not a Falconry podcast. Or at least not one that I knew about. And John, you've said the same thing. And that's kind of where you jumped on board early on, was like, I've had this idea of doing a Falconry podcast. But of course, with the audience I already had pre-established, it made sense for you early on to just come in. You know, at first it was just going to be, you're going to try a couple episodes, see if you liked it, see if it was worth it to you. And you just completely had a blast. Now, I'm not like a really, outside of my inner circle, I guess you'd say, I'm not extremely a sociable guy. So really, it's been kind of ironic to me at the very beginning when I was doing so many episodes to be out there, putting myself out there kind of as the face of falconry conversational media. And really, as you probably noticed early on, the difference between my episodes and yours was I'm pretty much doing like interviews versus conversations. And just the tone would be completely different. So for many reasons, it does make a lot more sense for you to launch Falconry Chronicles, Falconry Chronicles podcast, and take that wherever you want to go. And your audience, of course, hopefully everybody finds out about this and spread the word. Definitely spread the word if you've listened to this episode. We really want to make it completely seamless for John's current audience to follow the Falconry podcast as it continues under this new name. And then as for the Falconry Told podcast, we've pretty much figured out an arrangement where it's going to stay where it's at. We're going to port all of John's episodes to his new feed. So you'll want to make sure you go there, whatever you got to do to subscribe or follow, whatever, on the different platforms. We got to make sure all that happens. But then all of my episodes will remain pretty where they're at, essentially. So if there was anything I had recorded you wanted to go back and listen to, great. And you know what? Sometime down the road, I don't see anything in the near future. As John mentioned, my life is slammed right now. But if I ever, sat down and did an interview with someone, I'd still have a place where I could put it if I wasn't trying to do a video interview. So yeah, that kind of summarizes, the whole backstory on all of this. So when you came in and you recorded a couple episodes and you were just absolutely having a ball, I mean, I pretty much saw my objective was complete, and this is the natural fulfillment of that, of you now making a Falconry podcast that I can go and tune in and listen to. And the fact that I don't have to do anything is just awesome. I mean, it's the coolest thing ever. And we've already seen a handful of different podcasts, Falconry podcasts, come and go. It's unfortunate when they go. The more conversations that are out there, the better for everybody. I firmly believe that. But we have seen them come and go. And I think Jonathan Munier is the only one that has a proven track record. You can reliably pull up Spotify or wherever you stream podcasts, and there'll be, if not a new episode, there'll be a whole backlogs of new episodes you can listen to. And that to me is the absolute coolest thing. And I'm thrilled Jonathan's done this, and I'm super excited to see where he's able to take this and go with it completely on his own. He's had so many different ideas and things where this is a natural progression and really just a natural fit for what he's trying to do and where he's trying to take this.
Yeah, no, and I agree, man. I mean, I still remember sending you that email, and I actually wrote an article about this, and I think it was actually the article maybe that I wrote for Neil in Pursuit Falconry magazine, basically outlining how this kind of came about. And I still remember sitting there bored on a break at work one night in the sleep lab, man, I really just wish that there was something like maybe Falconry related podcast wise that I could just listen to kill the time. I remember checking multiple times before thinking this, just off and on. And then one night I remember actually searching it, and there actually was one that popped up in a Google search, which was yours, ironically enough. And if you remember, I mean, whenever I emailed you, it wasn't to be a part of it. It wasn't to be involved with it. It was, hey, I don't know if you have the capability of doing remote podcast recordings, but I do audio. I've been an audio engineer off and on throughout my life for a very long time here, and I have the capability of doing one if you need another guest. Because you were on episode maybe like 2 at that point. Very start. And I was just like, I hear the potential in this. And I also heard that there was a way that I could help you too. That's the one thing that's always the biggest block or barrier for most people. It's not necessarily getting content. It's making the audio good and listenable in these podcasts and stuff. If a podcast's audio isn't listenable, I don't care how good the content is. I'm shutting it off after 5 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's, or even less. That being said, I knew that there was probably a way we could help each other, but I never thought that I would end up, you offered to let me produce an episode or two and see exactly like you outlined it, like, oh, if you like it, whatever. We give it a shot maybe. And I'm just like, I would suck at this. I just remember thinking like, I don't know if I would like this or not at all. And then I believe that first episode that I recorded, and I'm pretty sure it was with Matt Molinex, I just remember sitting there recording that with him thinking, I'll be damned if I don't like this. Like, I'm having fun doing it. And, I've been a musician for a long time. I'm used to people liking and hating what I do. That's never been a roadblock for me. I had thought about doing something like this for a while before meeting up with you. That being said, I didn't know if I'd enjoy it. And once I started enjoying it, I found quickly that, I remember having the conversation with you, like, well, the initial concern was, where are we going to get content? And then both within about 10 episodes, realized that it's going to be impossible, even with a niche topic like falconry. It's going to be theoretically impossible for just one or two guys to come up with every single type, to be able to cover, all the different types of content that is possible for something like this. So all that being said, point being, I appreciate the initial opportunity to be able to do this. And it was nice being able to jump in with someone who at the time especially was motivated and had goals to do something new and offer something new to the community at large. And, for whatever reason, it's grown into a worldwide, listener base.
Just to clarify on your point about it being impossible for just one or two guys to do all this. What you're saying is what we quickly realized after doing about 10 episodes each is that actually, the biggest concern that we heard early on from our peers and had thought ourselves originally and, kept hearing from people as we went is, how are you ever going to come up with enough content to do like a weekly falconry podcast? Like how much is there to talk about? And what we found out, to your point, was that it's an infinite body of knowledge and experiences to pull from. And so, it was an endless. Now, one thing I will say early on, I personally didn't know the direction this should or would take. We had come up with these goals that seem insane now, but of course, with your backlog, it would be as easy as you being able to keep up with the workload. But we were trying to do an episode every Tuesday and Thursday, or just these different things. And, that was tough for me because with life and everything going on. So you've pretty much shaped it into the direction that it is a sustainable podcast. If you were to continue doing it by yourself, it's fully sustainable with the format you have. And you do have a crazy amount of episodes on the back burner waiting to be released. And again, this is all kind of good reasons for why we're at the point we're at and where we're taking this kind of fork in the roads where you're going to go out and do this on your own. It's because of the amount of work you have. It's better to go ahead and make this, clean cut, if you will, right now, so that you have, a ton of content that you can firmly, guide the audience to the new location where they can find all this over the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And just to make things even more transparent for everybody, and I'll apologize for anybody listening to this is thinking this is either too long-winded or whatever, but there's so many different thoughts, sentiments and emotions that kind of go into all this, especially for me. I can only really speak for myself, and I'm sure that there is some for Israel too. But just to make everything transparent and all this too, I hope nobody thinks or has any kind of ideas that there's anything other than a completely and totally amicable mutual agreement that this is what this has led to. In other words, Israel and I have been good friends for 5 years now, and at least, and there's nothing that's transpired in this whole thing that we want to lead anyone to believe that wasn't a completely mutual and totally, amicable decision in this whole process. It just makes sense. And once again, if it was set up a little bit differently from the onset, it would be just a pure cut and dry, thing or whatever.
You'd probably just hear me. You probably just wouldn't hear from me anymore. That'd be the end of it. And you'd have all of the, you'd have license to the name and all the different things that you need in order to, potentially make this into something that can support you in some way. And that makes sense to keep going 10, 15, 20 years. And I think that's your goal. And that's what I'm so excited about, is that I had some part in helping get this whole Falconry podcast thing going. And now I have something when I'm working down in the shop or, on a road trip, I have something that I can flip on and hear from guests from literally all over the world about falconry. It's really, it's such a phenomenal, avenue of media entertainment, but we get emails and stuff all the time, the appreciation, the outpouring of support has been cool from day one. And yeah, totally amicable. I'm absolutely thrilled for Jonathan to take this in whatever direction he wants, as long as he keeps up the great quality. Like he said, if audio is bad, I can't hardly bring myself to listen. So that was something that was, very important to both of us. As long as that's all good, I'm all good. So yeah, we don't need to be too long-winded, but
yeah. Well, and to that tune, I will go ahead and just summarize the final thoughts that I want to convey on this too. I mean, first and foremost, if anybody is interested into the future and becoming a sponsor or wanting to somehow collaborate with the podcast, Falconry Chronicles at gmail.com is going to be the contact email that you need to submit those through from here on out, because those will come directly to me, and we'll see what we can figure out. I've really enjoyed collaborating with the state clubs and different people here in the U.S. and around the world to accomplish whatever goals that we've been able to accomplish together. It's been just fantastic, and I hope that really continues. It's part of the reason why I'm doing this. All that being said, basically everything is pretty much going through me now. So that's the email that you need to send that to. Any inquiries, anything.
Yeah, let's get your website and socials out there. And of course, everything, when your website's up and running, which is underway now, but when it's up and running, everything will be, you can find everything there. Every single stream where this is going to be available, whether that's Spotify, iTunes, whatever, it's all going to be on your website. And I guess that'll be, you can shout out your website and what your socials will be too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and once again, Falconry Chronicles podcast is what everything is going to transition to. So as soon as this launches, which I'm estimating will be early January, it's going to take me a few weeks at least to get everything ported over. I mean, I've got like 100 episodes that I'm going to have to literally pull down, re-download the episode art, the files and everything too, and literally port over to a new podcast RSS feed, and also put up on the new website, which will be falconrychronicles.com. And once everybody, like I said, once everything's up and live, everybody will be able to go to the website and stream like they have been on Falconry Told, but now it'll be on falconrychronicles.com. And the podcast, all you should have to do is, I mean, you can keep following Falconry Told if you want. There's just not going to be any new stuff come up on it. If you want to, or at least not for a very long time anyway, but I mean, if you want to still continue to follow that feed, you're welcome to. But all new episodes, you just search whenever it goes live. There's going to be announcements made for that too. But whenever it officially goes live, everything's going to be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that kind of stuff under Falconry Chronicles podcast. So like I said, we're trying our best to make this as seamless as possible. There's going to be a big ripping of the Band-Aid off for me, because there's going to be hours of new uploading and everything else that I'm going to have to do initially to start off with this.
You have my sincerest condolences on that.
Well, I mean, like I said, as far as everything else goes, I can't announce it yet officially. Also, there should be another announcement coming in the next probably couple of weeks, but Falconry Chronicles is also going to be part of a larger podcast network as well, some of which you're familiar with. I can't make an official announcement yet because they haven't made the official announcement yet either. That being said, that's going to open up even a lot more opportunities for growth for Falconry Chronicles, and just, the amount of possible content and things like that, opportunities in the future also, because being part of a larger podcast network with bigger metrics and downloads and everything, the cool thing about it is I should be able to generate some degree of income revenue from ads and different things like that, and be able to sustain this more into the future and do other potentially cool things with it. And so once again, there'll be another announcement made here in another couple weeks, but this is just to let everyone know, Falconry Chronicles podcast on all the platforms, and falconrychronicles.com, the website. Everything from here on out is going to be released under those banners. So, that being said,
Jonathan, just one final time to make sure, the air is fully clear for everybody out there. I know everyone loves some good falconry drama, but there really is no drama in this situation. I'm fully endorsing and support your new endeavor. I can't wait to see where you take it. And I hope and I pray that you are able to benefit at all financially in comparison to what we've done through this whole time, where we've pretty much, I thank everyone for the different patches and any donations that were made for episodes that people did. They went to the right one of us, whoever had done it. And I sincerely thank everyone for all of that. But yeah, this is hopefully something you can take and let it, at least cover your time, for crying out loud. This has been a completely volunteer effort by both of us, overwhelmingly by Jonathan Munier. And one final point I would like to make is this podcast from the very beginning was only possible, not anything to do with Jonathan or myself or the quality of our audio, but it's always been the quality of our guests. To all those early guys that sat down with us and recorded a podcast with no idea how this was going to go, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. And you all know who you are. Everyone who sees those first 10 episodes knows who these guys are. People tuned in because we were able to sit down with some of the most respectable names in our falconry community. And it's because of that we were able to establish an audience. And because we had an audience, we had the drive to keep going at all. So I just hope everybody who's been enjoying what Jonathan Munier has been doing will find him at all of his new locations, and it shouldn't be that hard. We'll make sure it's easy. It'll be across the Falconry Told website, social medias, everything, as well as this episode. So just fully clarifying what's going on, the direction everything is taking. Thank you to everybody who's followed. And as I said, as Jonathan just said, it doesn't hurt to stay subscribed to the Falconry Told podcast and things like that, because my backlog of episodes, the episodes that I had recorded, will still be found there. But if you want any of the hundreds that Jonathan has done and will be doing, you'll have to go find them at his feed. So my stuff will be there. And as I said before, if opportunity ever comes up where I sit down, even if Jonathan comes over to my house, whatever, and I do another State of the Union, I'd like to be able to put together more of an interview format type of, and we call it podcast, and I called it podcast originally. Really, for myself, it would have been more interviews. If I just have to come to terms with it. But if I ever do interviews, they will be available there at the Falconry Told podcast. But like Jonathan said, it could be a long time. So I have no idea. And that's why this is so important to make this happen now on Jonathan's behalf. So thank you to the whole audience. Thank you, Jonathan, for letting Falconry Told ride on your coattails for the past year or two. What you've done is just absolutely impressive. And I think it's going to just get better and better. So I'm excited.
Awesome, man. Well, and thank you for clarifying that stuff too. And you make an amazing point. None of this would have been possible if so many people wouldn't have been willing to share their stories and basically talk with us, whether it was whatever term you want to use, podcast, conversation, interview, whatever. This wouldn't be possible. The whole concept of this was totally dependent on other people being willing to share their stories and experiences with the wider worldwide falconry community. And a couple more points just to button up before we promise we jump off of here. That being said, yes, thank you very much to everyone that's joined and participated so far and everything else. I do have a backlog now of 30 episodes still that haven't been published. They'll get published. You have my word. I think I've earned the at least that much trust anyway so far. That being said, Israel and I want to make things transparent. And one other point also, there's been quite a few, actually a handful of falconers that have passed even since we even started this podcast. And that's been a huge part of our mission too. There's been so many falconers that have died over the years that unfortunately, they might have left behind books or other publications or things, but the spoken word aspect is a big motivation reason why we started this, and being able to chronicle, well, for lack of better words, chronicle, whatever these, and just kind of, gather all of this giant collection of spoken word recordings and stuff. A big reason why a lot of people have agreed to even do these with us is basically because a lot of all these eventually are going to end up in the archives of falconry. And Israel and I pretty much have been in agreement since kind of the beginning of all of this, and that, I don't want anybody else listening to this also that thinks, well, what are they going to, what's going to happen with these now? Well, the same thing is going to happen with these that has always been intended to happen with these eventually. And I'm actually in talks right now of figuring out the process, the best way to go about it. But I know all of my recordings, at least right now, and I'm sure Israel's will here at some point too, end up in the Archives of Falconry directory and things like that. I mean, that's always been a mutually agreed upon thing for Israel and I since we started in this and stuff too. So I don't want anybody else to think that end goal or whatever the case is going to change. That's still staying the same also. The wider goal and the wider purpose and all this is still intact. And it's kind of to that end that I continue to be motivated to do this, along with, of course, like Israel said, all the people that seem to support, love, and listen to this for whatever reason. So, like I said, thanks to everyone. I mean, can you think of, I think that we've touched on most of the important stuff, don't you, Israel?
Yeah, I think we've covered everything that we wanted to. The main goal of this, like Jonathan could have just launched all this and I could have done a social media post and said, hey, go follow Jonathan. But we really wanted to, first of all, regroup, at least one more time here while things are on the current trajectory they're on. But just together establish that, yeah, there's no financial reason. There's no any type of falling out or anything going on here. It's just Jonathan needs to have more or less the reins of his own podcast to forge, the destiny of it with basically just so that the work he's putting in is not volunteering for me in any way. But that if he's doing this for free, it's going to be for himself. But if he's able to make any money on it, which I sincerely hope he figures this out and is able to make it, cover his costs, maybe even, give him a little extra cash here and there that he can put towards whatever. I would love to see this grow in any way. So anyways, this isn't any type of falling out or this is a celebration of where we've gotten to, what we've accomplished, and where Jonathan's going to go from here. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you'll find Jonathan and his podcast at falconrychronicles.com and everywhere that it's streamed soon.
Yeah, no, awesome, man. And thank you. Yeah, the goal has always been not necessarily to even make money off of this, but to eventually get to a point where it is at least self-sustaining. And this is the only way that I know of that it can at least have a chance to be that. And so for everyone, like Israel said, that's donated, that's helped support, that's given small grants, or in any way, shape, or form help to make anything happen so far, thank you. And yeah, man, I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. And I hope that everyone continues to support Falconry Chronicles, because it's basically everything that's been going on for the last 2 years anyway, as far as just, basically the only thing that's going to change on my end is just the name that everything's kind of operating under. So hope everyone continues to support. And we'll see you soon.
And yeah, Merry Christmas from Falconry Told and Falconry Chronicles.
Yes, for sure. Happy holidays, and hope everyone has been having a great season too. I haven't heard of anybody getting bit too hard by the Murphy's Law aspect of falconry, but at any rate, we wish the best for everyone. And like I said, thanks again for the continued support.